The alien boy's plea. The sun was setting behind the distant purple hills when Jaren, a human mechanic, finished fixing the power unit on his small cabin. He was wiping grease off his hands when he heard a knock. Barely a sound, soft and weak. Strange. He lived on the edge of the colony. No one ever came here. Jaren opened the door slowly, expecting maybe a worker or a delivery bot. But what he saw made him freeze. A child. Small, thin, shivering, not human. The boy had pale violet skin, large yellow eyes, and no shoes on his feet. His clothes were torn and covered in dust. His voice cracked when he spoke. Please. Human. My mother. She cries every night. Since my father left. No one helps her. Jaren blinked. The boy looked no older than 6. He was trembling, not just from cold, but fear. Where is your mother now? Jaren asked, lowering to one knee. The boy's lips quivered. She hides. In the broken ship. Behind the scrap field. She won't eat. She won't talk to anyone anymore. Jaren looked past the boy. No one was behind him. Just the evening breeze and the quiet sound of wind blowing through the scrap piles. Are you hungry? The boy nodded quickly. Jaren sighed and stepped aside. Come in first. Let's get you warm. The alien boy hesitated, then entered slowly, as if afraid he'd be punished. Jaren gave him a blanket and a heated drink. The boy clutched the cup with both hands like it was treasure. What's your name? Jaren asked gently. Rill, the boy whispered. Jaren gave a soft nod. Okay, Rill. We'll go see your mom, but after you finish that drink? Rill didn't smile. His eyes were tired. He drank slowly and stared at the floor. Half an hour later, Jaren and Rill stepped out into the fading light. The air was colder now. Rill led him silently through the scrap piles behind the colony. Most of these ships had crashed or been dumped here years ago. Here, Rill said, pointing at a rusted hull. Jaren followed him inside. The interior smelled of metal, dust, and sadness. And then he saw her. A woman, alien like Rill, curled in the corner, wrapped in an old cloak. Her arms hugged her chest tightly. She didn't even look up. Ma, Rill whispered. Her eyes slowly opened, then widened when she saw Jaren. She tried to sit up, but her body failed her. She was thin, far too thin. Her cheeks were hollow and her lips were dry. But what struck Jaren most were her eyes. They were full of sorrow and fear. I'm not here to hurt you, Jaren said softly, raising both hands. She didn't reply. Rill moved to her side and placed a hand on her shoulder. He brought food, Ma. Still, she said nothing. Jaren crouched and carefully placed the wrapped meal and water on the floor. You don't have to talk. Just eat. But she didn't touch it. Rill looked at the human. She hasn't eaten since Dad left. She waits for him every night. But he's not coming back, is he? Jaren's heart sank. He didn't know the full story yet, but he knew abandonment when he saw it. I don't think he is, Rill, he said gently. Tears welled up in the boy's eyes, but he wiped them away quickly. Jaren turned to the woman. Your son came to me. He was cold, hungry. But he didn't ask for food for himself. He asked me to help you. That made her blink. Jaren slowly stood. I'll leave this food here, and I'll come back tomorrow, if that's okay. She didn't nod. But she didn't shake her head either. Rill looked up at Jaren. Will you come back, even if no one wants you to? Jaren met the boy's eyes. Yes, I will. He placed a second blanket near them before stepping out of the broken ship. As he walked back to his cabin under the star-filled sky, Jaren couldn't shake one thought. What kind of world lets a child be the only one to save his mother? And why? Did this world seem ready to forget them? The next morning, Jaren couldn't shake the memory of the alien woman's hollow eyes. He had seen many broken machines in his life, crushed engines, shattered drones, but never had he seen a soul that looked so silent. Not just quiet. Silent, like her voice had been stolen long ago. Jaren packed a small bag, food, medicine, a warm cloak, and made his way back to the broken ship behind the scrap field. The rising sun gave the metal hull a golden edge, but inside the shadow still ruled. He tapped gently on the side of the ship. "Rill? It's Jaren." No answer. He stepped inside slowly. Rill sat by his mother's side, rubbing her hand softly. She still hadn't moved much. She didn't sleep, the boy said without looking up. Just cried quietly. Jaren crouched beside them. The woman's face twitched, perhaps in pain, perhaps in fear, but her eyes followed him now. That was a start. "I brought food again," Jaren said, unwrapping the small meal. "And some medicine. You don't have to talk, just, please, try something." She turned her head away. Rill frowned. "Ma, please eat." Still nothing. Then Jaren noticed it. Her hand. It trembled slightly, but not from cold. She was reaching toward the food, but stopped midway, as if afraid she didn't deserve it. Jaren gently pushed the food closer. "It's yours. No one's watching, no one's judging." After a long pause, she picked up a piece and placed it on her tongue. She chewed slowly, like her body had forgotten how. Rill's eyes brightened. She ate. The woman didn't look at Jaren, but she reached for more food, quietly, slowly, carefully. Jaren smiled a little. "That's good." He placed the medicine nearby. "Pain relievers, for weakness. You don't have to take them now." This time, her eyes met his. Just for a second, then dropped again. Later, as Jaren prepared to leave, Rill followed him outside. The boy looked around nervously. "Some people in the colony saw us yesterday. They don't like us." Jaren frowned. "Why?" Rill hesitated. "They say my mom is cursed, that she carries the mark." "What mark?" Rill looked down. "I don't know. But after my father left, everyone stayed away. She hasn't spoken to anyone in moons." Jaren knelt down. "Rill, is your mother sick?" "She's sad," the boy whispered. "So sad it makes her weak." Jaren stood and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "She's not alone now. I'll help. But you need to stay strong, okay?" Rill nodded. Back in the colony, Jaren's return was not quiet. As he passed the market stalls, a trader whispered loudly, "Still playing nurse to that broken woman?" Another voice chuckled, "Don't bring that curse back with you, human. Stay out of things you don't understand." Jaren stopped. He looked at them both calmly. "She's a mother. She's starving. And you're calling her cursed?" "She's not our kind," one spat. "Let her kind deal with her." Jaren didn't answer. He walked away. But something was burning inside him now. A quiet fire. A decision. That evening, he returned to the broken ship. This time, he brought tools. He didn't ask permission. He just started fixing the broken lights. He cleaned the floor. He repaired the heating unit using old wires and battery packs. The alien woman didn't stop him. She didn't help either. But she watched. At one point, as he adjusted the light over her sleeping child, she whispered, so softly, he almost missed, "Turasin, why?" Jaren turned. She was looking at him. For real this time. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Her voice was cracked and low, unused. Jaren smiled gently. "Because someone should have. A long time ago." The woman looked down. "My name is Jaren," he added. "I'm a mechanic, a human, and I'm not afraid of you." Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak again. That was okay. He'd wait. He'd fix what he could. Not just wires and lights, but the silence too. That night, Jaren lay awake in his cabin staring at the ceiling. He kept hearing her voice, cracked, low, and filled with pain. Why are you doing this? It wasn't just the words that haunted him. It was the way she asked, like she truly didn't believe she deserved help. The next morning, Jaren returned to the wrecked ship again. This time, Rill was outside, drawing shapes in the dust with a broken stick. When he saw Jaren, the boy ran up quickly. She's still quiet, but she looked at me when I told her you'd come. Jaren smiled. That's a good sign. Inside the ship, the woman sat up against the wall, wrapped in the new cloak he'd left yesterday. Her hands rested in her lap, still, but her eyes tracked him carefully. She didn't look afraid anymore. Just hollow. Jaren placed down more food and water. Then gently, he sat a few feet away from her, leaving silence between them. Finally, he spoke. Rill told me your mate, his father, left you. She looked away. I don't want to dig into wounds, Jaren said softly. But if I'm going to protect you two, I need to understand. Who was he? A long pause, the kind that felt like it might stretch forever. Then, she whispered, Commander Rillin. Jaren blinked. A military officer? She nodded slightly. He promised me safety, a home, said I was special. He marked me, said I belonged to him. Jaren noticed her hand twitch. She was rubbing a spot on her upper back over the cloak. That mark, is that what others fear? She gave a weak nod. It's a binding symbol. His clan uses it. It means ownership and shame. I thought it meant love. I was wrong. Jaren clenched his jaw. So, what happened? Her voice was soft, almost fading. When Rill was born, everything changed. Rillin stopped visiting. He said I'd become weak. He told his clan I failed him. They believed him. Jaren asked, why didn't they help you? You're the mother of his child. Her eyes narrowed, pain surfacing. Because I'm not one of them. They only welcomed me when I was new, pretty, obedient. And when you weren't? They called me the cracked vessel, said I brought sorrow. Jaren stood and walked a slow circle, processing everything. So they just left. You? They sealed my name from records, told others not to come near me, and Rillin vanished. Jaren looked at her. Really looked, not at the fragile frame, not the torn clothes or the dull skin, but the strength still hiding inside her. A strength that had survived hunger, abandonment, and shame. What's your name? He asked gently. She paused. Then she answered quietly. Talari. Jaren gave a slow, respectful nod. Thank you, Talari. He didn't say anything else for a while. Neither did she. But in that silence, something shifted. Outside, Rill waited beside the fire Jaren had built earlier. Did she talk? The boy asked. Jaren nodded. Yes. She told me about your father. Rill looked down. I remember him a little. He had a hard face, sharp voice. I was always scared of him. You're brave, Jaren said. Rill blinked. No, I'm not. You are, Jaren repeated. You took care of your mother when no one else did. You walked through the night to ask a stranger for help. Rill said nothing, but he stood straighter. That evening, as the stars appeared, Jaren sat outside the ship and looked up at the sky. Talari quietly stepped out, wrapped in her cloak. She stood beside him, silent but not hiding. They both watched the stars in silence. I used to wait for his ship every night, she finally said, hoping maybe he would come back and say it was all a mistake. Jaren looked at her. But he didn't, she shook her head. No, and I stopped hoping the night Rill fell sick, and no one answered my call for help. Jaren nodded slowly. Then let's stop waiting for him, he said. He's not your story anymore. Talari's lips parted. Just slightly. Not a smile. But the beginning of something. Jaren returned the next morning with tools in his pack, This time, not just to fix wires, he had a feeling something far deeper was broken here. Talari sat beside the heater he had installed. Her cloak was wrapped around her, but her eyes were more alert today. She had eaten, she had slept, and she was no longer avoiding his gaze. Rill was outside, drawing suns and stars in the dust. The silence inside was calm now, not heavy like before Jaren sat down beside her. "I know you don't trust easily," he said gently, "but I need to ask something." Talari tensed. "Is it true you carry the mark? The one that made others fear you?" She looked down. "Yes." "Can I see it?" She hesitated. Her hands gripped her cloak tighter. "It's okay," Jaren said. "If you don't want to, I understand." But slowly, she shifted. She turned her back toward him and lowered the top of the cloak. What Jaren saw made him suck in a breath, and wasn't a scar. It wasn't a brand. It was a glowing, pulsing symbol etched into her skin just below her neck. It shimmered with deep red lines and burned like fire trapped beneath glass. "It was done by laser binding," she whispered. "His clan calls it the soul bind. It links a woman's body to her mate's bloodline. If she tries to escape, the pain starts." Jaren stared at it. "And you've lived with this?" "For 7 years. Has it hurt recently?" She nodded slowly. "When Relin left, I thought the mark would fade, but sometimes it pulses. I think he's still alive, somewhere, still bound to me, still watching." That night, Jaren went to the colony library. It wasn't much, just a dusty room with old data cores and translator books. He searched through records of alien cultures, trying to find more about Talari's mark. After 2 hours, he found something, an old file labeled Binding Practices Valari Clan. The file showed diagrams, warnings. "A soul bind is not just a symbol," it read. "It is a claim, a warning to all others that the bearer is off limits. If another male attempts to take her in, the mark activates. A silent alert is sent to the original clan." Jaren stared at the words. So that was the trap. That's why no one dared help her. Helping her meant becoming a target. The next day, Jaren returned to the ship. He found Talari sitting beside Rill. The boy had braided a small piece of her hair with a blue ribbon he found. She looked peaceful. He didn't want to disturb that. But she noticed him, and somehow, she already knew. "You found out, didn't you?" she asked softly. Jaren nodded. "It's a tracker. The mark. It alerts your old clan if another man helps you, or tries to protect you." She nodded once, her expression hard. "I was meant to suffer in silence," she said bitterly. "And if anyone tried to help me, they'd suffer too." "I'm already helping," Jaren replied, "and I'm not afraid." She looked at him. "I don't want you to get hurt," she whispered. "Then let me remove it," Jaren said. "I've worked on tech like this. I might be able to disable it, but I'll need your permission." Her breath caught. Silence. Again. Then she nodded. "Do it." Jaren got to work that night. He used soft gloves, a neural scanner, and micro slicers. The mark wasn't just skin deep, it was tied to her nervous system. One wrong move and the signal might go out. Talari sat completely still, eyes closed, trusting him. He worked for hours. Then finally, the mark flickered and went dark. She gasped as the pain lifted from her back for the first time in years. Tears welled in her eyes. "It's gone?" Jaren smiled tiredly. "Disabled. They won't feel you anymore." She turned and stared at him. Then, for the first time, she touched his hand. "You're the first person who looked at me and didn't walk away. And I never will," Jaren said. But deep in the night sky, a red light blinked to life in orbit. Something, or someone, had noticed the silence. Jaren woke up to a strange sound. It wasn't wind. It wasn't engines. It was a deep hum, like something powerful was floating above the colony. He rushed outside and looked up. A dark, sharp-edged ship hovered in the early morning sky. Silent. Watching. Not a cargo ship. Not friendly. It bore a symbol. Red and curved like a snake biting its own tail. The same shape he had seen glowing on Talari's back. They were here. Back at the wrecked ship, Talari felt it too. Her body trembled. Her hands shook. Her instincts screamed, run, hide, disappear, but there was no place left to hide. The air was thick with danger. Rill held her arm. Ma, what's wrong? She didn't answer at first. Her eyes were fixed on the roof. She could feel the ship, like it was calling her pain back. They've come, she whispered. Jaren reached the crash site out of breath. They're here for you, he said, panting. Your old clan. They must have tracked a final pulse when the mark was shut off. Talari stood slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard now. They always come when they think I'm weak. Do we run? No, she said. Running won't stop them. They'll keep hunting. Even Rill. Her voice cracked. Jaren nodded firmly. Then we stand. The next hour was silent, too. Silent. The ship didn't land, but a small pod detached and hovered down near the junk field. From it stepped two armored figures. Tall, heavy, silver helmets with red eyes. Behind them walked Relin, the mate who had left her. He was taller than Jaren imagined. His uniform was clean. His voice echoed from a speaker around his neck. Talari, you have broken your vow. You were claimed, and you let another man touch what belonged to the clan. Jaren stepped forward. She doesn't belong to anyone. Relin's eyes shifted to him. You must be the mechanic. Brave. Foolish. Talari didn't blink. You left me. You left your son. You wanted me to suffer. I left you because you were broken. Relin said coldly. Your sadness made you ugly, in their eyes. I had to protect the family name. Rill stood behind his mother, holding her hand tightly. She cried every night, the boy said. She waited for you. Relin didn't react. You were never supposed to grow up knowing me. You were a mistake. Something inside Jaren snapped. He stepped forward. You want her, you'll have to fight me. The guards raised their weapons. Talari whispered, Jaren, don't. But Jaren didn't move. You abandoned her. You made her afraid of kindness. And now you're back to finish what? Your pride? Relin smiled slightly. No. To erase a mistake. Suddenly the guards charged. Jaren ducked, pulling a blaster from his tool belt. He wasn't a soldier, but he had trained with colony defense years ago. He fired once, hitting one guard in the leg. The other one swung a pulse staff, knocking tools across the floor. Talari grabbed a sharp metal pipe and slammed it into the attacker's arm. For the first time in years, she fought. The fight was wild and messy, but together, Talari and Jaren stood their ground. Finally, Jaren pinned one guard under metal parts. Talari knocked the other out with a hard strike to the chest. Only Relin remained. He stepped back toward his pod, but Talari's voice stopped him. You won't take him, she said, pointing at Rill. You gave him up. You don't get to claim him now. Relin looked at her, and for the first time, his cold face cracked. You were never this strong before, he said bitterly. I was never given a chance, she replied. Relin stepped into the pod. This isn't over. Jaren fired one shot at the pod's wing. It sparked, spun, and flew away, damaged but still moving. The quiet returned. Jaren, Talari, and Rill stood in the ruined yard, dust floating in the air. I'm sorry I brought this on you, Talari whispered. You didn't, Jaren said. They did. You just survived it. Rill looked up at his mother. You fought them. You were amazing. She knelt and hugged him tightly. I had to. For you. And maybe, for herself too. Days passed after the battle near the wrecked ship. Talari didn't hide anymore. She helped Jaren fix the heating coils, taught Rill how to cook simple meals, and walked outside, even when others in the colony watched from a distance and whispered. She didn't care. Not anymore. The woman who once sat silent in the dark, wrapped in fear, now stood tall beside the human who believed in her. One quiet evening, Talari and Jaren sat by a small fire outside the ship. Rill had fallen. Sleep curled in a blanket near the door. The stars above were bright. I never thought I'd feel alive again, Talari whispered. For so long I thought the only future was silence. Jaren looked at her. You're more than you know. You didn't just survive. You stood up when no one else would. She smiled gently, but her eyes held worry. They'll come again. Jaren nodded. I know. But this time, she said, we'll be ready. The next morning, a warning siren echoed across the colony. A strange ship had landed just outside the defense grid. But it wasn't from Reland's clan. It was older, damaged, and it carried only one passenger. The colony guards approached it carefully. But the ramp opened before they reached it. From the smoke and dust, a figure limped forward, scarred, bleeding, dragging a broken leg. Everyone froze. It was Relan, but not the proud warrior from before. His armor was cracked. One eye was swollen shut. He leaned on a bent metal rod to walk. Help, he groaned. The guards didn't move. He collapsed to the ground. Jaren heard the news and ran to the medbay. When he arrived, he found the last person he expected, Talari, already there. She stood at the glass wall looking through it at the man who once chained her with a glowing mark. He looks small, she whispered. Jaren said nothing. A nurse stepped over. He's asking for her. Won't let us treat him unless he speaks to Talari. Talari sighed. Then she stepped inside. Relan lay on the bed, chest rising and falling with effort. His eyes opened slowly. You came. Talari crossed her arms. You shouldn't have. I was betrayed, he coughed. My own clan turned on me after the failed attack. Said I shamed them. They tried to erase me. She stared. Now you know what it feels like. He chuckled weakly. Ironic. I left you in a broken ship. And now you're the one standing tall while I crawl. Talari didn't answer. I didn't come to beg, he said slowly. Just to say, maybe I was wrong. Talari took a breath. I don't need your apology. I don't need your guilt. I just wanted to see you fall and survive it. She turned and walked away. That door was closed forever. Back outside, Rill ran up and hugged her tightly. Are you okay, Ma? Yes, she whispered, kneeling. For the first time, I really am. Jaren smiled from a distance. Talari looked stronger than ever. No more chains. No more silence. No more waiting for a man who left. She was no longer the abandoned one. She was the one rising. The sun rose slowly over the colony, painting the scrap fields gold. Inside the old wrecked ship, the fire had gone out, but something warm still remained. Peace. Talari stood at the door, holding a small satchel. Rill clung to her side, eyes full of questions. Jaren tightened the strap on his pack and looked at them both. It was time to leave the broken ship and the broken past. The colony had offered them a room near the northern border. Small, quiet but warm, and far from the people who once whispered and stared. Talari didn't care anymore. She was done hiding. Rill laughed as he ran ahead, spinning in circles on the fresh path. He's different now, she said quietly, watching. Her son. Because you're different now, Jaren replied. Talari smiled softly. You changed everything. Later that evening, they all sat together in the new shelter. There were no old memories here, no shadows, just a clean room, a working heater, and a future waiting to be written. Real held up a small picture he had drawn. 3 stick figures, holding hands. He pointed. That's me, that's Ma, and that's you, Jaren. Jaren's eyes softened. Me? Real nodded. You're part of us now, right? Talari looked down. Her hands trembled slightly, but she reached across the table and placed her fingers over Jaren's. You didn't just save us, she whispered. You stayed. When no one else did. Jaren met her eyes. I didn't come to save anyone. I just followed a boy who cared more about his mother than himself. They both smiled. That night, a soft knock came at their door. It was the colony. Director, we've been watching. Carefully, she said. You've built something strong, quiet, unshakable. Talari straightened. What do you want? The woman smiled. To offer you a job, Talari. We've had enough warriors. We need survivors, mothers, leaders. Talari's breath caught. For years, she was seen as a burden, a curse. Now they saw something else. Weeks passed. Talari became a voice for those who had none. She helped others like her, those left behind, tossed aside, forgotten in corners of the galaxy. And Jaren, he never left her side. He taught young workers, fixed broken tech, and learned that he didn't need to be a hero to be a home. One evening, under the soft light of 2 moons, Real asked a question. Jaren, can I call you Dad now? Jaren looked at him, heart tight. He nodded. If you want to. Real grinned. I do. He ran off to tell his friends. Talari looked at Jaren. He sees you as family. Jaren stepped closer. And what about you? She took his hand. You were never a stranger to me. You were the only one who looked at me and saw me. Jaren gently pulled her into his arms. No words needed. They were home. And in a quiet corner of a noisy galaxy, a human, an alien mother, and her son built something stronger than war or blood. They built a family. Not because of fate, but because one boy whispered for help, and one man listened.